Welcome to my free monthly group coaching call. Most of you know I'm Susan Campbell, and I turned 82 this summer. So that's got me thinking about getting older. It's actually been something I've been thinking for a long time. Let me ask you to mute yourself if you've got like noise in the background and that sort of thing. So just please do that. But there will be times to share. I'll ask for people to volunteer to talk about anything you want to share. It's not going to be any kind of a forced thing. There'll be no breakout groups. But I always like to do a little research. I'll tell you how things are for me at this age and hear some things about that from you. So I am going to start with just a show of hands in terms of ages that we've got here in the room. So how many people are under 50 years old? Under 50, raise your hand. Aha, good. It's a good time to start thinking about living a good old age, because that's really my theme here. Okay, how many people are between 50 and 60? Okay. How many between 60 and 70? Looking good. How many between 70 and 80? Anybody over 80 besides me? All right. Good. Hello, friends. All righty. So start with the idea of development. When I think of development, I have to ask myself, at this age, is development still going on, or is this about it? Now, that's kind of a joke, but I just want to say that my own experience is that during the early phases of my life, up until maybe, I don't know, 78, I still felt pretty young. And there was this expansion, like wanting to learn new things, see new places, try myself out in the world. And then, after about 78, there's this contraction and real simplification. And in a way, living the life I always dreamed of, because I was always a little bit of a workhorse and working like too hard. And now my whole life just feels so lazy, and I'm allowing that. I'm allowing a lot of breaks. I still work. I still do private practice, but I always have several hours a day when I can just discretionary time. So that's a conscious choice. I partly it's because I'm not sure my body can show up, like starting at 9 a.m. Like I recently had to start at 9 a.m. for a couple of programs that I was teaching. And starting at 9 a.m. is hard for me. And so I'm not going to do that anymore. As you go through life, you just go, no more of that for me. So what I want to do today is look at what I've determined to be the developmental tasks of this really late stage of life. I call it the final stage of life, your last 10 or 20 years. All right. I don't know if this is my last 2 years, my last 5 years, my last 20 years. That's one of the challenges, actually. That's one of the developments. There's a whole new level of uncertainty. And of course, we're supposed to learn to deal with uncertainty. But this not knowing when I'm going to die, it's kind of like one of my main concerns now. I wish I knew. Some people would say, well, how many people would want to know when you're going to die versus like how much time you have left versus no, I wouldn't want to know. Anybody? I'm going to say, I want to know when I'm going to die. Is there anybody else feel that? And how many people would not want to know? Some people don't care one way or the other. Yeah. Maybe I'm just a control freak, because I'm thinking now, because I want to have it all planned out so that I don't leave any money on the table. Haha. That's not what I mean. But I don't want to leave a big mess for my heirs, my survivors. So well, that's part of it. How much longer do I have before I have to clean up my attic, throw away those things? So I'm framing this as developmental tasks. And so getting old in general has a lot to do with loss and grief and that sort of thing. So if anyone has had a recent traumatic loss, I just want to warn you that things might come up when I talk about these things that are tender. So just get ready to be tender with yourself. So the first thing I want to say is sort of like the punchline. And I've always known this, even when I was younger, because I watched my grandparents age and I watched how they developed or didn't develop a certain inner resilience, awareness, that kind of thing. So I didn't think they did a very good job, especially my grandfather on my father's side. And, I thought, man, he never developed himself. He's still like a big baby. No, I had judgments about my grandfather. And when he started getting really old, he got quite paranoid. And that happens a lot with older people because we really are more vulnerable and we aren't sure who to trust. And, there's all these elder crimes. A friend of mine and I were just talking about our wills and our trusts. And we both revealed that one of the attorneys that we've hired in the past, so two people out of a dinner party of 4 people, the attorney was in jail for elder abuse. They got disbarred. So, I mean, that's just in my mind because I was at dinner with my friends a couple of days ago. But so, okay, it's in a way, there's reason to be more paranoid. But when I watched my grandfather, I'm in my 20s and I'm watching him, how he aged. And I came to the conclusion, and this is the conclusion of a lot of wise people who've done research, like Eric Erikson, famous psychologist. Here's the conclusion. The better you do at the developmental tasks of the earlier stages of life, the more ready you'll be to pass on, the more ready you'll be to die, the less fear of death you will have, and the more peace you'll have about the loss of function of getting older. So do your work now, you younger people, do your inner work now, because it'll come back to bite you in the ass like it did my grandfather if you don't. So, and frankly, I still work as a psychotherapist. There's a lot of pretty old people who are still doing their inner work. It's never done. So it's not like I want to say, do it and then it's done. But I just want to encourage you that each stage of life has its own developmental tasks. And then the next one has more tasks and so forth. But this final stage, a lot of it is about, and here's 2 big things I'm going to deal with today: coming to terms with the hand I was dealt. And we'll get into that in a little bit. And coming to terms with how I played that hand. Those are really big things for this final stage. I want to show you the overview, this talk today. It's a screen share. So you'll just get an idea of where we're headed. So this is my version of the developmental tasks of this last stage of life. Geez, I choked on that. Okay, so just taking a look here. Loss of function, like not being able to walk, not being able to see and hear. Those things really happen. Loss of beauty, we all know about that. That starts happening very young. But that's physical, exterior kinds of beauty. Loss of loved ones. Loss of independence and the need to seek help and accept help. That's huge. And a lot of us are facing that now. I'm going to ask for some comments about these when I go through each one, because I do want to hear your experiences. I'm just going to glance down at these now. I'm not going to speak every one because we'll get into each one. So before I go on, any comments about anything that's just coming up for you based on what I've said so far? Yeah, go ahead, Gail. Oh, you got to unmute yourself. Oh, you still have to unmute yourself.
There we go. So the only thing that comes up for me, and I like what you said about Erickson, but what's come up for me in my challenges as I'm getting older, I think I do a lot of self-care and take care of myself. The big challenge is how taking care of myself, doing the nurturing, maintaining relationships, and helping my kids get where I'm at.
Yeah. And
the challenges that come up with limits I've set, ways I take care of myself, that type of stuff.
Yes, and those young people don't understand that it takes more time for self-care and more energy. I mean, I'm saying that, as the anger statement I've heard from a lot of my friends of my age and a bit younger. Their kids really expect a lot of them as grandparents and that sort of thing. And it's like, I'm old, I haven't got the bandwidth to run around and take care of the 5-year-old anymore. So, but from our point of view, us, you and me, Gail, it's a new balance point on the I call it on the self-other continuum. That's always balancing self and other. How much do I give versus how much do I need to conserve my own energy, my own money? These are challenges that are true for all of us, whether we have kids or not. But we want to feel into that. How is that changing? Am I allowing that to change, or am I rigidly still being the super giver that was honest and authentic for me when I was in my 20s, 30s, and 40s? But a certain age, it's like, man, I just don't have it to give, type of thing. And how do we handle our own guilt and sense of loss about being able to give? So that's there. Any comments about that? And then we'll pick up the other raised hands here. Got anything on that, Gail?
No, I think that's pretty accurate. And the other thing is, I think I am a little bit farther in the place than my husband. He's done really good with it, but it creates more stress and challenge for him than it does for me. So we're sort of trying to work that all out. Yeah.
True. You have a spouse and you're still, there's another thing, as if you're aging with a spouse who's around your age, or what if they're even, older or younger, doesn't matter. But sometimes we're developing along these different continua at different rates. So I'm ready to kind of let go of a lot of responsibility, but my partner's not. Or here's the one, and I'll address this a little bit later. One member of a couple is losing a lot of function and the other one is very healthy. That's one of the biggest challenges. And I've seen a lot of those. Someday might write a book about that if I live long enough, because it's such a difference for couples. But let's take the other shows of hands now. I saw David's first, and then Julia.
Hi, Susan.
Hey.
So the first thing that came up for me was that I've been contemplating this, because you had that one webinar a number of months ago, I guess back in the spring, and it got me to thinking, and I started talking to some friends about it. And it's now been with some of my friends, it's a welcome topic. It's interesting that I initiated it in a way, and so the piece that I wanted to say about that you had up there as one of the rites of passage, or the next phase, was to find new activities. And one of the activities that I'm really grateful that I started a number of years ago was emotional awareness. So I maintain being in groups online, like an honesty salon, that really give me a chance to realize what's important, to stay in touch with myself. And the other piece is to stay intellectually open and learning, because both of those have become much easier to do once I brought emotional awareness into it. It makes a lot of the intellectual sense a lot more manageable. So I'm welcoming getting old, and I would like to know when I'm going to go, because I'm in a race to get as much in as I can.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to comment on one of the things that you said, David, about risk, about trying new things. I've got this for later on in my talk, but I think I want to mention it right now. As I and some of us stopped doing things like skiing and tennis, which I've let go of both of those things, or risk, or if you've been a high risk person like skydiving and all that kind of stuff, at some point, maybe you can transfer your risk-taking personality to inner risks, like what David's talking about, like going to an honesty salon, playing the Getting Real card game, inviting friends over for some kind of honest relating. No, that's risky. That's a different kind of risk. And now, if I'm not skiing and playing tennis, what am I going to do? So I personally have really taken on more. I've got more time for, well, like I belong to 2 different couples groups, for example, and we go pretty deep and pretty emotionally risky with one another, and we're all close friends too. And there's no leader. So I wrote about that in one of my newsletters. Some of you probably saw that. Okay, I'm going to hear from Julia, your comment.
Yeah. I'm also, like David, really glad that you're having this, even though I just turned 30. I am actually in a situation where one of my parents is in the exact situation that you talked about. He has a degenerative condition that he's losing a lot of abilities. And it's been kind of progressive, but it's really ramping up. And, as a child, it's like suddenly all the roles are turned upside down. And even though it's not getting talked about, my mom's shifting from a wife to a caregiver. I am shifting to a daughter to a caregiver. And it's both beautiful and heartbreaking, the kind of conversations I'm able to have with my dad about the process that he's going through and how to treat him with as much dignity and individual, while also maybe where there's resistance. And because of the challenges of I'm the child, how do I facilitate and nudge having certain conversations, so we're not just waiting for that phone call where like we have to be very reactive, but like very much proactively planning as much as possible. But yeah, an opportunity to talk with many of you that are much older than me, that are going through the experience that my dad is going through. And a lot of his friends don't understand, or even couples. So it's really helpful to have a space here and seeing that people are willing to have those conversations, to see how I can translate that back to the situation I'm navigating. So this is very, very welcome and important.
Well, and Julia, one of the things that at every stage we are dealing with, and you're helping us be aware of that, is loss. You have lost type of relationship with your dad, and you're finding a new relationship with your dad, but there's loss there. and we're all dealing with loss. So I'm going to get into that in a little bit here after these comments, so that other people can share their experiences about loss. So it's both losing something out there, but also losing the ability to feel a certain way with my parent, because they're not there for me in that way anymore. And so for us who are older, maybe we've lost our parents, but now we're losing our spouses and our good friends. And that's a big deal. Danik, you had your hand raised. Another young person. It's my self-talk. Welcome.
Hi. Do you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. You raised the point about ideally dealing with the appropriate stage of each part of each stage of life. Ideally, I'm finding myself. I'm 40 years old, and I want to live the life of a 20 or 25-year-old. And but I'm not actually I'm not actually doing it. I'm just fantasizing about it. And yeah, that's one of the problems I'm dealing with, because I know I'm already at this stage. I'm very frustrated, and I feel very childish compared to when I compare myself to other people my age or even 30-year-olds. I realize I'm at a different place. I feel like I'm at a different place, and already now I feel like I want to refuse giving. I want. Yes, you talked about giving your time, attention, and already now the last 5-10 years I've been I feel a refusal and kind of anger to give. It's like I finally want to
receive. I still have needs that I didn't meet in my 20s. No. So I think it's really good for you to be honest about this, and I don't know how lovely that you can be honest in front of a whole group of people like this, because whatever chronological age you are, that's not the point so much as what you feel like inside, and coming to terms with that, whatever it is. I think it's amazing that you're able to realize that a lot of your, I'm just making an assumption here, a lot of your developmental needs that ideally you might have wished to have happened in your 20s and kind of get those out of the way, that's still going on for you. So I want to just personally encourage you to be where you're at emotionally, and kind of forget about the age thing. You know, now some of us who are 80, I want you to be where you're at physically, because you think you're 40, but you're not 40, and you better warm up before you go jogging and that sort of thing. So I might have the opposite advice for some people on my category, because I see so many of my friends acting like they're 40 when they're 80. That's so if you really have the body of a 40-year-old and you're 80, cool. But if it's some compulsion that I was always able to do this, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I guess it's one of my pet peeves, with just people, my peers, is I was always able to do this and I can't do it now. Well, yeah, duh. So that's all I'm going to say there. Like, yeah, duh, you're 80, All righty. Comment? Okay, I'm going to go into somebody's speaking, and I'm not sure if you're asking for to comment.
Susan, she's not muted, and her background noise keeps overriding the
Do you know who that
speaker's
is? Because
information.
I can mute this person.
Her name is Marina.
I'll just mute all right now, except
My apologies.
Okay. So first thing I want to get into that's on the list there is loss of function. So just now I'm asking for us to reflect together silently. What have I already lost? What functions have I already lost? And how do I feel about what I've lost? Things like eyesight and hearing. Do I need to wear reading glasses? Are there little things? Those are, to me, very little compared to what you could have lost. But even those deserve some kind of checking in. And what are my expectations around loss or my fears of things that I'm going to lose? I know many people in my circle had parents who lost their ability, their cognitive abilities, their ability to remember and make sense when they're speaking and that sort of thing. So that's a big worry for my circle of friends, is losing your marbles. I personally don't have that fear. Could happen, but my parents lived pretty long lives, pretty healthy till the end, and never lost any cognitive function. So, you know, just what you see around you sometimes sets up expectations. It also sets up you to fear certain things. And as I start to lose, I just want to ask you one more question to reflect, and then I want to kind of get a show of hands or some comments on this. And I do see a hand raised here. When you start to lose a function, you have the choice of working harder to maintain it. Like I said, I've given up tennis. Okay, that's basically to preserve my joints. No, so it's because I don't really want to have a knee operation or anything like that. But I could work harder. I could do more physical therapy type of things to strengthen my knees. I could do more aerobics than I do. I could work out on certain weights at the gym that would help me. And maybe I don't use those weights. Or do I just let go of it when it gets to be a little more challenging than I'm ready to deal with? So it's like, how much do we work against the aging, the sort of natural aging process, and how much do we kind of surrender to it? And to me, that's a big question. Do you kind of fight the loss? Are you fighting the loss in a healthy, well-balanced way? Or are you giving up too soon? Or are you giving up gracefully? So think of something that you've lost and just reflect on that, and we'll have some comments. First, I think I'll ask Nisa. Is that how you say your name? Nisa? Unmute your, well, I guess I can unmute yourself. Can you unmute yourself? Okay, and then we'll hear from Debbie. Go ahead. Is it Nisa? Is that how you say it?
Susan, thank you for having this. I'm I'm in my 70th year, and I keep thinking of that instead of just saying, hey, wait a minute, you're 69. Like, just say 69, like just enjoy 69 because it's coming up, the actual age. But of course, I am in my 70th year, and I've always seen myself as a very strong person and able to do things. And over this last summer, I had a knee injury that really dogged me for months, and like having to keep my knee up with the heating pad and the physiotherapy and all that, and looking out over the balcony and seeing someone walking and saying, oh gee, look, they're walking, like with this deep appreciation that I wasn't able to walk except for short distances with sticks. And so now that that's function is back, it's just given me, like I said, this deep appreciation of being able to just simply walk again. And years ago, I had a carpal tunnel release, and I was one in the statistics, 1 in 200,000 people that wound up with permanent nerve damage. And so I would like to get laser treatment on my eyes because I would like to see better. And I cannot drive at night without great difficulty. So it's just safer if I don't drive at night, even with the yellow tinted glasses. And so that's a real heavy loss for me as well. And so it's humbling. It's humbling, accepting. And also at age 60, I wound up with all these wrinkles, and I fought for years and did treatments to try to eradicate the wrinkles. And but they, I thought about the facelift, but I didn't do it. Now that I'm 70, I just say I'm just accepting.
Yeah. At some point you give up on that sort of thing, but it's different for different people.
So it's extremely interesting aging, but I'm trying my best to maintain and do all I can to help myself. So it's and that's helping me. So thank you.
I want to comment on what popped up in me when I was listening to you, Nisa, is you can come back from being over the hill. I want to say that you had carpal tunnel and now you don't. I had some serious joint pain at one point, and I don't have that. And I was walking with a cane. No, I mean, if those of you who know me probably can hardly imagine me walking with a cane, because I still look very athletic. But I was for about 6 months, and I got a real taste of being disabled. But I did a lot of it was from a medical procedure, from some drugs. I was pretty sure that it was toxic. So I did a whole lot of detox, green juices and that kind of stuff for months. And I got well. Now, it could have been just time, but anyway, I got well. And I've had a couple other incidents, like I was really bad off, mostly it had to do with joints or my back. And now I'm fine. So just because you're starting to go down, you might come back up again. That was a surprise to me.
I believe in regeneration. I just have this fear, since I was in that small 2% category, percentage of people that wind up with bad effects from surgery, to go get my eyes fixed or things like that. I have a fear about that because of my past experience that I live with now. So, but I definitely believe in regeneration, and that's what I'm working on. And thank you.
Yeah. Karen, you have a comment. Oh, wait, but what about Debbie? Debbie, do you still have yours? Because I had Debbie in the queue. Debbie and then Karen.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I'm 70, and having that birthday was a little bit mind-bending. I called my older brother, who was 73, and I said, what was it like for you when you turned 70? And he said, well, I put this little post on Facebook. It just said 70. Wow. And he got a lot of likes. And that's the way I felt. It's just, what, 70? I haven't been able to run since I was about 50. My knees started telling me, no more of that. I have a lot of arthritis. It concerns me quite a bit when I see it getting worse in my hands, because I like to type and communicate and research and stuff like that. But one of the scariest things is I'm losing words. And I've always been a wordsmith. I love the language. I love words. And now sometimes I can't think of the right word. That's scary. Is that going to get worse? I don't know. I guess I should talk to my doctor about that and see what I can do to stave it off, I guess.
There are things that we can do. They may work, they may not work, but that's sort of one of the points of this talk is, do you go toward, I've just got to let go of this because it's going, or how do I stave off this loss of function? And I deal with that a lot. Oh, do I feel like going to the gym today? I do walk every day, but honestly, I would rather be sitting behind my computer than walking. You know, but I have to push myself. Every day I push myself so I don't lose functions. But then there's certain types of functions that I don't bother thinking about. All righty, Karen, you're next.
Hey, good morning, Susan. Gosh, just so many thoughts have come up for me. I work with people who want to age in place and die at home. And I'm 63 and I am looking at things like knees, which have always been very active in my life physically. And the conversation for me now inside myself is with my body about, what do you need? Like, how can I support you? How, like, you know, I also don't want to do surgeries on my knees. And I like talking to myself about, well, do these knees have 20 years left in them if I make it to 80? Do they, like, you know, and how can I support it, you know, by not doing my intense hikes and not, you know, I know the things that make my knees hurt, you know, so I'm constantly in this conversation with my own body about, like, what do you need? How can I support you? And so there's that, like, I'm always talking to my body now, like, how can I help? You know, same thing with my brain. How can I help?
Learning to listen to your body. That's something that some of us learned because I learned to listen to my body at a very early age. It was part of my culture. And it was also part of the human potential growth culture too, is, listening to all the very fine, little teeny messages from your body saying that you're a little bit anxious and that sort of thing. But I want to say that when you think you're listening, this is not to you, Karen, but when you think you're listening to your body, are you really listening to your body, or is it some kind of a belief about what your body should be able to do at X age? Because like 50 sounds kind of young to me, and so I might say, well, geez, I'm only 50, so I ought to be able to hike in the Himalayas and so forth. Let's go to Ava. Is that how you say your name, Ava?
Yes, thanks, Susan. So I was first reflecting on, loss of function for my parents because they are losing their sense of hearing, and I find myself getting impatient. And I don't know whether I should suggest for them to get hearing aids or whether it's just something more of like an inner work for me, like where is that patience coming from? And can I use it as an opportunity to develop more patience? But then I thought about like myself and how I'm over 40 and there's this and single, and there's this also like not immediate loss of function to have kids, but this fear of losing that function and how I grapple with it. And, even though it's not here yet, and I don't know when it's gonna happen, kind of going back to what you were saying about death, there is a race against the clock, and I'm not sure how to deal with that.
Yeah, that's real. So that's another thing. Women in their late 30s or early 40s, the biological clock is a big deal. I forgot all about that, but I went through that too. So, yeah, there's a lot to think about, including in my case, I wasn't with a partner, do I have a baby with this friend, which I decided not to do, but it's a big deal when you're 40. I'm going to go through some of these other reflective questions and ask us to reflect. So, along with loss of function is kind of loss of your physical looks. Some of us have mentioned that before, and I'm just giving us a moment to think about, how's that impacting me? How's that impacting that kind of a loss? How identified have you been with how you look? Eventually, you're going to be changing, depending on how long you live. Probably your standards for what's acceptable will change as you age. But let's let ourselves feel that, oh, I remember when I used to look like that, or I used to get that kind of attention. Some of us say we feel invisible as we're getting older. That's a common complaint. I don't experience that at all myself, or the degree of invisibility that I experience is a welcome relief. I'll just say that. But that's not true for a lot of people. So how do you feel? And I want to move okay, let's hear from Martha. Go ahead, Martha.
Yes, I am finding that I get so much more attention and compliments now at this stage in my life than I ever did when I was younger. I will have people walk up in the grocery store and say, "You've got such beautiful white hair," or "I love your blue eyes." And I never got that when I was younger. Maybe people were afraid to approach me or whatever, but I get a lot more attention now than I ever did, other than from my spouse.
Well, talk to him or her. All right, another comment from Julia.
Yeah, I actually find, like Martha, I'm actually finding people are commenting on how I'm more attractive. And like, I find that I actually feel good in my body, and I'm 30, but that's because I've made a lot of lifestyle changes. So actually, I'm loving aging.
I have to laugh, don't, pardon me if I laugh out loud.
It's so true. It's so true. And actually, I have a lot of family who died suddenly, some from heart attacks, and even some of like my family members' age body, I see them not aging well. And thankfully, I have a couple other people in my life who are your age, Susan, and they are aging well. So it's given me a lot of liberation from fear of like aging can happen well.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't have to be you die of a heart attack at like 50 or 60. So actually, and it may change when I'm in 40 or 50. I don't know, but I'm actually loving aging.
Lovely. Now. Let me get a show of hands. How many people have mostly positive feelings about the aging process? Show of hands here, just on the screen. So mostly positive feelings. We got this. Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, well, some of us have actually mostly positive feelings. So let me get into loss of friends and loved ones. I'm just going to name it and give us a chance to just check in. Have a lot of people around you died in the last few years? Can you see that that's going to be happening fairly soon? Or does that seem like a long way off? that concern about losing people who you're close to. Because I think most of us don't want to lose the people we're close to. So there might be some concern there. Nisa, go ahead and speak.
Hi, thank you. Last year, my husband and I had our 50th high school reunion. And just in that, it's been almost a year now, and already 4 people have passed away. And one's going through chemotherapy. And so it's really quite daunting. I find it's like really in my face. And when you said, how many, a show of hands, how do they feel? And do they feel a positive feeling about their aging? And I couldn't raise my hand. I was kind of sitting on the fence with it. I'm hopeful, but I wanted to say that my father just turned 96 in September. And he's just amazing. The way he just looks. A lot of people thought because my mother's passed away, I'd have to come right out and say, this is my father, because they would think we were husband and wife. I'm like, oh God, and he's got a level of dementia that is increasing. And for me right now, it's like 1,000 goodbyes.
Yeah.
1,000 goodbyes. All those losses of function and
yeah. So folks, this is not just about loss of our own function. It's loss of function, people who are close to us. And I want to go to the next developmental task, which is coming to terms with loss of independence, actually not being able to either see or walk. Hearing is a kind of loss of independence, but not quite so much. My grandfather was deaf, and he could pretty much read lips, and there's of course signing. But just think about, is loss of independence threatening you in any way at this point? But I mentioned earlier that one of the big deals is when you're partnered and you're really in an interdependent relationship, and one partner loses function much more quickly than the other. And one of the biggest issues there is, oh, honey, don't leave me alone. I'm afraid to be alone. And the other partner is like, I've got to take care of myself. I'm going over to the swimming pool and I'll be back in an hour and a half. Can we have those difficult conversations, and not just about when I'm going to be back, but our feelings about this difference. So as a communication coach, I've come to believe very strongly that the most important thing when you have these difficult differences, whatever the difference is, that you're able to communicate about them. So, one person disappointing the other person by having to do some self-care, all of that, and the feelings that I'm disappointing my partner. Or maybe I don't disappoint my partner. I do whatever will keep my partner happy, and I'm going to have feelings about that too. So how do we discuss these honestly with each other? So this is one of the biggest developmental tasks, is being able to talk with our loved ones. And I think it was one of the young people here said, should I talk to my parents about getting hearing aids, or should I become more patient? Well, those kind of conversations need to be happening at any age, but the older we get, and these more difficult conversations where the person really, really needs you and you really have nothing left to give, how do we communicate about that? So it's real important before you get to that point to develop, your capacity to take emotional risks and have these difficult conversations, or these types of conversations where you learn to give bad news, you learn to hear bad news, and you learn to stay in love while you're delivering your bad news or you're hearing it. And that's a whole practice in and of itself. And of course, that's what my life's work has been about. So do you think, just let me ask you right now, do you believe that you have the communication skills necessary to have those kinds of difficult conversations when you get there? Just reflecting. Do I feel like I can have a conversation with my parents about getting hearing aids? When my partner's disabled and I want to do something that excludes my partner because I just need a break, can I talk to him about that? And can I let myself have my needs and let him have his needs without making anybody wrong? How am I at that? Or am I still operating under the assumption that if my actions make somebody else unhappy, or somebody else judges or disagrees with my actions, that then I must be wrong in some way? In other words, can I handle criticism from others without it limiting my freedom? Can I care about what somebody else feels without being controlled by it? And can I communicate that caring so that it really lands? So get ready, because if you're going to be partnered in older age, you're going to be needing these kinds of skills. And Martha has a comment. Go ahead, Martha.
I have outlived everyone except for one nephew. My sister, his mother, died about 6 years ago. He's caring for his father, who does not take care of himself. I've always been fiercely independent, and I am at this point still very healthy. I have trouble I've made all my life decisions. I've done a living will. I've discussed that with Stephen. I've done all that kind of stuff. However, I'm reticent to bring up any kind of issues that I have, because I know Stephen is so busy dealing with his father that I at least at this point, I don't feel comfortable. However, there are times when I would love to have a discussion with him. Usually it's when we're driving and he's on the phone, or he's he's playing on his phone, he's at a ball game, whatever. So I'm not sure exactly when to bring this kind of stuff up.
Well, I think it would be great if you say, I need to talk to you about something. When could we do this? If you find a way to at least get your foot in the door for a discussion. And then you'd have to trust that by you expressing your feelings and needs, he's going to be able to take care of himself. He's not going to just over stress himself because of you and so forth. So if that's a concern of yours, and I don't know if it is, but it sounded like it was, you speak that too. That's part of your message. It's not just here's what I need, but it's here's what first you just need to talk. I got that. But here's what I might need from you, but I don't want to disclose my needs if you're going to just automatically think you have to do what I ask. No, I need to be in relationship with people who know whether they can really give to me without sacrificing themselves too much. We do make sacrifices for people we love, but if that's your concern, you need to be able to speak it. Now, I think I want to, before we end, the two biggest developmental questions that I think are important for this last stage of life. To get ready to die, you need to be able to have come to terms with the hand you were dealt. Now, so many people die with resentments and blame and why me and all of this kind of stuff, or just feeling like, I've never really outgrown this pattern I have. Like I was dealing with a coaching client, a businessman, a few days ago, and he was just revealing to me how all his life he has always felt like, I just don't get it. That was his words. I just don't get it. And if maybe you can empathize with a guy like that. I mean, he's a successful businessman, but he has this not good enough program. And there was really stuff that happened in his childhood where, his older sibling was more successful and that sort of thing. He was criticized a lot by his father. And he just always has this feeling, I just don't get it. And he's only in his 50s and he's working with this. But what I'm asking you to reflect on is maybe there's something like that, some core feeling about yourself or life that it hasn't changed in all of these years and you're making yourself wrong about that. So how do you come to terms with that? How do you come to terms with the fact that one of your parents was absent or unable to be a parent, just as one example? How do you come to terms with you're born with one leg shorter than the other? Like most of us are not going to identify with some kind of birth defect like that, but it's sort of like that. Something about the circumstances I was born into, or the care that I received, or the first person I married, or the fact that I drank so much when I was young that nobody was there for 20 years. A lot of recovering alcoholics say things like that. I wasn't there for 20 years of my life. So, my growth is kind of stunted. How do you come to terms with that? How do you be honest about that was the hand you were dealt? And that's going to involve some grief in a lot of cases. I do deep work with people, and almost everybody, when they've got some kind of a current issue that's not working for them, it harkens back to some thing about being a human being, some skill that they didn't develop because they weren't helped, or they weren't in a safe enough environment to develop in that totally healthy way. So very few of us were given everything we needed to develop in that most totally healthy way. Can you feel what that was? Can you be honest about at least what you imagine that was if you can't remember? And can you grieve that? Let yourself feel, wow. And here's what it looks like with a lot of my coaching clients. Wow, that kid really didn't have a chance. Like, oh boy, what would he have been if he had grown up in a safe environment where he didn't have to look over his shoulder and be suspicious at every turn? And that just the grief of what my life might have been. So if you have any of that that's a little bit still going on, let it happen. Let your grief work in the background of your life. That's part, to me, of coming to terms with the hand you were dealt. And then the final thing, and then I'm going to close here, is coming to terms with how you played your hand. So, geez, I was born with one leg shorter than the other. Or in my case, here's what I have to come to terms with, is I had a very safe childhood and very supportive parents and, privilege all over the place. not so much money, but everything else, a lot of good educational advantages in my home. So that's my early life. And I see now, as a coach and therapist, that most of the people that I meet and most of the people who need my help did not have that advantage. And what I wonder about the hand I was dealt is, maybe if I would have had more trauma, and this is a sincere thing, I would be a better therapist. No? So, I'm not complaining, but it's a reflection. So I just invite you all to look at how you generally feel about how you've played the hand you were dealt. And just to let you know, there's still time. So I think I'm going to close with that because we went a little bit over time today. And there's let's say, a more organized version of this presentation. If you're really interested in the content, I did this same program on the STOA website. I mean, you can find it on the STOA website, the STOA, STOA. So the stoa.com, YouTube. If you just go there and punch in my name, you'll see my other video on this same topic, where I spend a little more time guiding the group to reflect on these different developmental tasks. Here, I really wanted to get more interaction because you're my community and I'm here to learn from you as well. And I think it was great to hear from people older and younger, and hope we all learned something today about the final stage of life. Bye for now. Thank you.